Kia ora and good afternoon, everyone. Sorry about the delay. Welcome to the council meeting of Tuesday, the 25th of March 2025. In terms of health and safety, if the alarm sounds, please make your way to the nearest emergency exit. The assembly point is on the corner of Cameron Road and 3rd Avenue. Please be aware that this meeting is being live streamed and the video will be publicly available on YouTube. Members, could you please remember to speak clearly in your microphones, only one speaker at a time for clarity, and make sure your microphone's on. Please turn off mobile phones, everybody. Today's meeting is about the hearings around the alcohol bylaws. We will probably have 8 submitters, and we'll just hand over to Kevin Schuler for the opening karakia. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Kia hora te marino, kia whakapapa paunamu te moana, he huarahi mā tātou I te rangi nei. Aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou ia tātou katoa. Haumi e huie tai.
Thank you very much for that. I note that Councillor Baker has submitted his apologies for today. Any other apologies?
Second.
Councillor Morris and Councillor Roseboom, thank you very much. All those in favour of accepting the apologies?
Aye.
Those against? That is carried. Thank you very much. There are no late items and no confidential business to be transferred in the open. Any change in the order? We've only got one item, and I just have a call for any declarations of conflict. Councillor Taylor.
As the holder of 2 liquor licences in the city, I'll observe but not participate this afternoon.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Now we move on to business, which is the draft alcohol licensing fees bylaw, and this is the hearings. We will take the report as read because today is about having our submitters an opportunity to come and speak. This is the hearings, and we will have deliberations at the meeting on the 28th of April. I welcome Sebastian Miklos. I think he's on Teams coming in. Thank you for your time, Sebastian. You will have 5 minutes to speak and any time for questions. Just for reference from those that want to have a look at his submission online, it is submission 193 of the extraordinary agenda today, and I'll just get you the page number. That is on page 30. So Sebastian, I'll let you take it away. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sebastian Miklos. I'm a new resident of Tauranga. Actually, I've got a house in Tauranga for a while, but it's been rented to someone else. As my background, I work in the police alcohol licensing in Auckland. I was an alcohol licensing inspector in Auckland, and I worked for medical officer of health as well in Auckland, all alcohol licensing. So I can say I've got a good understanding of this process of licensing system in New Zealand. And I'm doing these jobs for probably 14 years now, altogether. I want to congratulate Tauranga Council for introducing this bylaw, because it is my opinion that the taxpayer should not fund the alcohol licensing process. I'm not sure, probably you all are aware of how the process works. So the license is, an application for a license is lodged with the council. Council send it to medical officer of health police. Alcohol licensing inspector reports. and if it's any contested report, then the application goes before DLC, a hearing is set, and all these expenses are paid by council. I'm aware of the current licensing fees imposed by Ministry of Justice, and I believe that Tauranga Council had a good proposition with these new fees, and especially when you consider that an application for a marriage certificate used to cost around $290, which is probably less than an alcohol license for a restaurant. The licensing fees are basically a combination of a lot of things, such as the type of the business, the size of the venue, and the license hours for the venue. I think the industry have to look first at those things before they apply for an alcohol license, especially license hours. And I'll give you an example. In Auckland, before 2012, almost every single cafe or restaurant used to be licensed 24/7, as there were all the pubs in Auckland. When the new act came with national default trading hours, everybody had to close at the latest at 4 a.m. in the morning. At the time, the industry said this will be the end of alcohol industry, and it wasn't. People adjust. We all have to understand that there is a specific number, there's a limited number of people who go out for entertainment. There is a limited number who can go to concerts, venues, and if they go to a special license, let's say on a Saturday, they won't go to the pub on the same night because it's quite expensive these days to go to these things. I don't believe hosting a concert of 10,000 people is the same as hosting, or should be invoiced the same as you have a wedding for 400 and something people. I don't think that's excessive. As I said, a manager certificate involves far less work, and it's better. It's got probably a lower fee than an alcohol license. I think the industry should be more aware of the tenancy agreements they sign for these premises, because that's the main thing, and they are locked into it. These licensing fees, in my opinion, would not influence the prices of alcohol, which is already too high on alcohol licensing. Look, I'm not going to read my full submission, because the committee, the council has access to it. That's probably all I was going to add. Along to what I said in my submission. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I'm happy to answer questions if you have any.
Thank you very much, and thank you for sticking within time. Much appreciated. Is there any questions from around the table? You've clearly summed it up very succinctly. I think we understand where you're coming from, and obviously have read your submission. So we thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Thanks so much.
I now ask Christine Gore from Vetro Mediterranean Foods to come forward. Christine, if you just push your button so you've got a red light on your microphone before you speak, you'll have 5 minutes to speak, and then time for some questions. I note Christine's submission is 195 on page 31 in Stella. So please go ahead when you're ready. Thank you.
Okay, just to introduce my business a little bit, it's just down the road there, and it's a Mediterranean food shop, which we sell probably 10% of our business is wine, international wines, 90% is food, and I'd like to say on behalf of probably the people against and for this bill that I think all of us in the industry are working towards reducing alcohol harm. So we're all basically on the same side. when I first saw that submission being called, I was actually quite shocked because I thought we did pay 100%. I thought we already paid really steep rates for licensing, so to find out it was only 40% was quite a shock. So one of my points really is that if there's any way that we can work together to reduce all those costs, they seem to be a bit cumbersome, and possibly there's a lot of unnecessary things in there that we can cull and streamline. As well as the licensing costs, there's an awful lot of costs on the businesses. That might be $360, I think, to put somebody through a duty manager course, but then you've also got to pay their wages while they're training for that. And myself, when I was just renewing our license, it took me a good week, I think, of just getting all those resources together. So there's a lot of work involved in licensing. The second thought that I had when I saw that was the wording on that. That was designed, really, it didn't surprise me at all that 80% of submitters were against or were for the byline, because the wording didn't give any consequences. So if the wording was, well, first of all, if somebody had actually come out and done an assessment on the impact of businesses, then I think you could probably safely say that that this will, to increase the rates by that amount, a few businesses will fail. They won't be able to sustain that. And they're likely to be the smaller businesses that add a bit of soul and heart to the city and a bit of culture to it. The big conglomerates probably won't be affected because they're still paying that same flat rate, but their takings are so much higher and the volume's so much higher that they won't be as affected as the small cafes and little wine shops and places like that just add character to Tauranga and tourism. So if just putting a blanket statement out like that, we already know what the result was going to be. The other thing is that it could possibly, there could be, we talk about reducing harm. If some businesses were, they had these extra costs to sustain, they've got several choices. They could fold, or they could put their prices up, which alcohol's already very expensive. So to add another $10 to your glass of wine when you go out might not be sustainable. Or the other thing that could happen is that they could really push the alcohol, and that's just what we don't want. So there could be an downside to that as well. And the third thing is that there's a perception that businesses are making a lot of money from alcohol, but in actual fact, that's our lowest margin. We aim for about a 35% margin on food, and alcohol is between 20 and 22%. So there's a lot of, we design it to go with food rather than on its own. We're not in there to make big alcohol sales. The other part too is that alcohol, it already has taxes. There's health levies on alcohol and there's excise tax. So before it even hits the shelf, it's taxed, and those taxes are going to reducing alcohol harm. I just don't really see that this regulation, making businesses will pay more, will reduce harm, which I think is the end goal for everybody. Because if somebody's addicted to alcohol, they're going to get it regardless, and possibly feeding their family might go. They might put alcohol ahead of that, and if they're paying more, then there's less food available on the table. So it could have a negative impact in that regard as well by forcing the prices to go up. Any questions?
Thank you very much for your submission and coming to the hearings today. Have we got any questions? Yes, Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Christine, for coming and taking the time to do a submission, and then also to come into the chamber and talk to us. Aside from the bylaw, one of the complaints that we get quite often is about the level of rates. And there was a story, of course, in the Bay Plenty Times and on Sun Live today about the level of the proposed rate increase. As a ratepayer and as a business and as a commercial ratepayer, as someone who pays more than residential, how would you characterise to somebody who said, hey, it's unfair that we're paying through our residential or commercial or industrial rates for Tauranga City Council staff to do monitoring of liquor establishments. We're not operating a liquor establishment, why should we pay for it? How would you respond to somebody making that assertion?
Well, I mean, obviously our rates are high and they're going up proportionately more than residential rates anyway. I think ours are going up about 17% compared to 11%. But I think you've got to look at it as a big picture. It's not just the profits that we're making from selling alcohol. It's the whole contributing to the society and to making Tauranga an attractive place to come to. It's a tourist place, it's beautiful. You can sit in a cafe by the sea and have a glass of wine and watch the world go by. It should be accessible and it should be done in a manner that's, I know there's a dark side to alcohol, but there's also a lovely side of just conviviality and vitality in a city. So if people want that, ratepayers are paying for lots of things that they don't use. A lot of people don't use the skate parks and the library, and yet they're paying for it. And this is just to be expected, really.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Christine, and very much hear your discussion, I guess, around being efficient. It is something that we're trying to do. So, very much we'll try to hopefully drive those processes to be simpler.
And I think, I'm happy to work with along with that as well, and I'm sure other people will. Yeah. We can streamline things.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Our next presenter is Kerry McCaffrey. Welcome, Kerry. His submission is 197, again on page 31. Welcome, and if you could just push the button.
Okay. Go for it. I'm here on the cause of the harm. Okay? So there's a pandemic in Tauranga at the moment with alcohol. I don't think anybody realises that except people in recovery. My name is Kerry and I'm an alcoholic and I have continual sobriety for 41 years. So I know what I'm talking about here. I deal with alcoholics in recovery and not drinking alcoholics all the time. So 80% of alcoholics drink. 80% of adults drink, alcohol. Age 15 to 24 years, 75% of them drink on a regular basis. And they don't drink beer, they drink these fizzy drinks that are 8 to 10% alcohol, really strong. In my day, it was 3 to 4. These fizzy drinks are between 8 and 9, 10%. Okay? 86%, this is stuff I got from Googler, is that 86% is in the least deprived neighbourhoods. Because the average alcoholic is not the guy on the park bench, 3%. He's the guy that lives next door. The woman that lives next door, they are your average alcoholic in this day and age. They are. I don't think people realise that. 1 in 2 Maori men and 1 in 3 Maori women drink to excess. Okay? 40% drink wine, which is a high alcoholic content, and also 30% drink spirits. Even beer today, if you get these craft beers, they're all high in content. So, you're talking about a whole different level of drinking here that we didn't have in our generation. The youth today are drinking high percentages. 45% of all deaths have some kind of alcoholic area around them. So they're attributed to an alcohol or drugs. I'm putting drugs in there too because alcoholics and drug addicts are mostly dual addicted now. So in my day, it was all about alcohol. Today, it's all about drugs and alcohol because of the dual addiction. And a third, this was in the Bay of Plenty, the Sun the other week, a third of all driving accidents are caused with alcohol or drugs. And I would say it would be higher because I sit and listen to people in meetings. I would say in an average AA meeting, there is 90% of the people in that room have drunk and drive. It's common. but they're just not being picked up. So the common thing is, of course, I was lucky I wasn't picked up. They were lucky. There needs to be more police on the street out there, I'm telling you. Okay. One of the biggest problems, especially for women who have a lower tolerance of alcohol because they haven't got the same makeup, haven't got the same body fat as men have, that can absorb the alcohol, the biggest thing that has happened in the last 30, 40 decades, the worst thing of all, is that alcohol was brought into the supermarkets. In 1999, it was brought into the supermarkets, which made alcohol part of the weekly shop, or the daily shop, or the whatever shop. So now alcohol, you go and buy your groceries and you put your alcohol in there as well. And this was really different for women, because women before had to go to the off licence, and there was a bit of a stigma about that. But now it's in the shopping. You go, 1 in 3 supermarkets have got alcohol in them, in the you know. This drug is causing you've got no idea the havoc that this causes. I was going to say, the young girls they start often at the age of 9, 10, 11 years old, drinking, because their families are drinking. And they're drinking this 9 to 10% proof fizzy drinks that they think's lemonade. And they get into all sorts of problems. Alcohol is a medical disease. I was born with it, it's in my family, it's rife in my family. But luckily we have a lot of people in my family that are in recovery. Now my whole area of coming here today is to talk about if an alcoholic, a drinking alcoholic, wants to go somewhere, wants to get well, wants to stop drinking, and believe me, we need more and more of these people that want to stop, there's nowhere for them to go. Okay? Mental health doesn't want them. The hospitals are sick to death of them. They don't want them. You go to Casualty, go to A&E, any Friday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights. It's full of people with alcoholic problems, you know? It's a nightmare out there, especially for these poor nurses and doctors. And they're taking up places that would be for somebody like myself with a hip replacement, etc. They're taking up surgical time, medical time, etc., etc. There is nowhere for them to stop. There's nowhere safe. So what is happening is that the GPs are doing this, and then they're going into a medical detox at home. Okay, I know. So something has to be done about a medical detox in Tauranga, because it's life and death. Seriously. And I'm not over-exaggerating here. To detox at home is not safe. Not at all. But there's nowhere else. Yep.
Right, thank you very much, Kerry, and congratulations on your sobriety. It's a very good achievement.
Yeah,
is there any questions? No one's got any questions?
No.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is important, people. It's detox. Thank you.
Our next presenter is Jennifer Lamb from Alcohol Health Watch. Jennifer should be joining us through Teams. You will find Jennifer's submission, which is 202, on page 33. That's in Stella. Good morning, or good afternoon, sorry, Jennifer, and you've got 5 minutes to speak, and then we can have time for questions, if any. Thank you.
Kia ora, good afternoon. I'm Jennifer Lamb from Alcohol Health Watch. Alcohol Health Watch is a national organisation, and we provide credible, up-to-date evidence and advice regarding alcohol policy and planning matters. And we coordinate networks such as the Cross-Council Local Alcohol Policy Network and other networks and projects that support the sector and communities. And we want to commend Tauranga City Council on making a specific bylaw on alcohol licensing fees and giving us the opportunity to make this submission. Our written submission outlined the reasons why the making of a bylaw on alcohol licensing fees is one of the key measures in a package of measures and policies aimed at minimising alcohol-related harm, as it supports the licensing work of the Council, including inspection and enforcement functions. We have recently made submissions on other key measures, namely the Council's local alcohol policy and the alcohol control bylaw. And our message to the Council then can be repeated again here. Of all drugs available in our society, alcohol is the most harmful. It is the leading cause of preventable death, injury and ill health in Aotearoa, New Zealand. The harms are far-reaching and deeply felt by individuals, whānau and communities. And alcohol places a significant burden on the city and in fact the whole region and nationally, and it costs over $9.1 billion annually. We know that what evidence there is an underestimate of the total burden of disease that particularly affect vulnerable groups and those at greatest risk. Young people, Maori, Pacific peoples, and those in high socio-economic deprivation areas. Local government has a key role in promoting the social, economic, environmental, and cultural well-being of communities and in supporting the system of control over the sale and supply of alcohol. The alcohol licensing regime is an important component of the system of control that can create safer environments and significantly minimize rates of hazardous drinking and subsequently alcohol-related harm. However, alcohol licensing comes at a cost, and that is why the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act 2012 envisaged full cost recovery. We therefore support the Council's development of a specific bylaw to cover the actual costs of alcohol licensing in the city as far as it is allowed. The alcohol fees bylaw is a logical option for the Council, particularly as the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Fees Regulations 2013 have not kept pace with the costs incurred by the Council, and the regulations are overdue for review. The Council's setting of realistic fees to cover the actual costs of this service would meet the policy objectives of the licensing regime, namely to recover the total reasonable costs incurred by the Council in administering the alcohol licensing system, to ensure that those who create the greatest need for regulatory effort bear the commensurate costs, to allow local circumstances to be reflected in the fees paid by operators and income received by the Council, to minimise alcohol-related harm to the extent that this can be achieved through a cost recovery regime. The alcohol fees bylaw also offers a consistent approach with a growing number of councils that have also used their bylaw-making powers to set fees, many of them, in fact most of them, seeking full cost recovery. So in summary, we support this bylaw and thank you for the opportunity to speak to our submission.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for your submission. Is there any questions around the table? I think you've made your points very well, so we thank you very much for your time. And as I said, we'll be considering this in April, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Harris Williams on behalf of the Mount Maunganui Business Association, on behalf of Nick Potts. Welcome, Harris. You have 5 minutes to speak. Thank you very much. Cool. Sorry, and Harris's submission is 200, and that is on. No, that can't be right. Sorry. Just get that right. 202 on page 44. Thank you.
All right, good to go.
Yeah, go ahead when you're ready. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Good afternoon, councillors. The Mount Business Association is here today to present our submission on the proposed alcohol licensing fees bylaw. Our core position is that the council did not adequately engage with the affected parties before the drafting of this bylaw, which in our view has resulted in a vague, open-ended draft bylaw. Many of our members report that they were not contacted by the council regarding the proposed bylaw, including our chair, and we have provided a few quotes in what I've attached with you there for some of the bigger alcohol licenses on our main street for added context. Furthermore, we are deeply concerned that this draft bylaw has been created with a severe lack of detail, context and transparency, leaving MBA in a position where we were actually unsure of what we were giving feedback on. Our foremost concern is that a detailed breakdown of costs were never provided during the stakeholder engagement process nor addressed in the draft bylaw. The only context given was that the existing licensing fees cover only 40% of council costs, with the ratepayers subsidising the remaining 60%. This lack of transparency on council costs leads MBA to a perception that council is appearing to oppose more cost on struggling businesses without playing its part in placing internal scrutiny on its own systems that may be leading to a 60% disparity. Another concern in this draft bylaw is that this draft bylaw broadly states that council would have the powers to reallocate costs from the general ratepayer to licensees without any indication of how those costs would be specifically allocated. That actually may be a mistake there. I apologise for that, but let me just continue. It's the MBA's view that this isn't just as simple as exercise of passing $755,000 of costs from one party to another. Some of the questions that arise would include, and I will just amend this, should a restaurant that sells alcohol that only has alcohol as a small part of its revenue have to pay the same proportionate amount as, say, a liquor store whose revenue is derived 100% from the sale of liquor? Another question that may arise are that hearings constitute a fair portion of licensing costs and are sometimes driven by objections from the general public. Why should a well-meaning business bear the administrative cost derived from public complaints? Another one is the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act placing unnecessary administrative burden on the council and leading to poor cost management. We don't have the answers to these. These are just questions that we like to pose. And these are important questions that we believe have not been reflected upon at all during this process. It is therefore the position of the MBA that before any bylaw can be fairly developed with adequate due diligence, the council must re-engage with stakeholders and provide transparent cost breakdowns and fee structures. This will ensure stakeholders can offer meaningful feedback on a bylaw that would otherwise significantly impact their business. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Harris. I guess a point of clarification, maybe from Sarah, if I could. What is the proposal? Is it a sort of a cost recovery, or is it like a fixed fee? Or just one of those questions.
Sure. The proposal here is just to have a bylaw that allows you to set a fee, and you'll have a separate decision-making process around what that fee would be, and it's likely to be a fixed fee because that's how the process works.
Okay, so currently it's fixed.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Thank you. Any other questions for Harris? Councillor Crowther?
Yeah, I guess perhaps in line with that, I notice Hamilton's proposal has they have fixed, but they have very low, medium, high, very high, and they have different rates. So it ranges from $320 sort of current fee to $1,050 and things like that. So, and then they have other categories as well. So, are you sort of suggesting that, as part of it, that if it could be fixed, but it could be for different categories? Is that sort of in line with I don't know if that's what you're sort of suggesting, Sarah, too, and if I clarify that with your comment, it has to be fixed, but there can be different categories. Is that right?
Through there, my apologies in answering that question, because there are categories of risk associated with all of the licences, but they are fixed fees for each category.
So just to clarify, thank you for the clarification, Sarah. So Harris, are you suggesting that's something you'd like addressed when we make the decision around the final policy, to actually have clear distinction between someone who's in, for instance, a liquor store you put here, compared to a restaurant that has only a small impact?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Well, I guess we want the debate. I think it's a much more potentially sort of complex and nuanced situation that we have here, as opposed to just straight allocating the 755,000 from one to the other, because there's arguments about, say, amenity that these, especially like restaurants, provide to the public, and then should they be portioning a percentage of that cost. There's also a numbers argument. I mean, if we're looking at above a 200% increase in some cases on some of these licensees versus what it currently sits per head as a general ratepayer. I don't know the exact numbers, but let's just say it's around 60,000 ratepayers. For that cost, that's probably about $13 per head as a cost. So sort of balancing that, there's a matter of fairness here. So I just don't think that level of detail and scrutiny has been taken in this process, and therefore we'd like it to see go back to the drawing board.
Thank you very much. That is all the questions. Thank you for your time and representing the Mount Business Association. I'm sure you'll be busy over next month putting submissions in. So look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
The next speaker I invite forward is Luke Van Veen from Hospitality New Zealand. Luke, you will have 5 minutes to speak. If you could just push the red button. Luke's submission is 203, which is starts on, I believe, page 47, I think, 47. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, thanks so much. Good afternoon, councillors. My name is Luke Van Veen. I'm the Regional Manager for the Central North Island of Hospitality New Zealand. We're a membership-led organisation, not-for-profit, representing around 2,500 businesses across the motu, including cafes, restaurants, bars, nightclubs, commercial accommodation, country hotels and off-licences. And we've been advocating on behalf of the hospitality and tourism sector for over 120 years. Obviously here today to talk around the bylaw. Obviously we recognise the council is facing cost pressures, and it's true for every organisation across the motu. The hospitality industry is now more than ever overburdened with unnecessary costs, and to top off, an unstable economic environment over the last 5 years. It's seen many struggle to operate, and to the point we've seen many closures in the sector, and unfortunately there's many more to come, as we foresee this will only be in the beginning. They're closing the doors due to increase in cost, such as rates and all these things that are being added to them, and it would again another at this time like rate increase like this would add unnecessary strain on the industry that's technically already on its knees, and this city is no different for the local businesses here. We do note that obviously the fees have not increased since 2013, so maybe council could reasonably consider an increase in line with inflation around 33%. But I guess where we're coming from here is we really struggle to understand how the council could justify a proposed 244% increase in this cost recovery. In context, I suppose, for hospitality, right, we would sell a pint of beer for $15. If we were to impose the same increase, we would be looking to sell that same pint of beer for $36.60. We've already heard today here how at the moment the industry is deemed quite expensive. Imagine if tomorrow we impose that increase in our product, like you're doing here to justify for the customers. So we see, I guess, further rationale into why the council's considered, I guess, it appropriate that licence holders cover 100% of alcohol licence costs. While it could be justified that we do see maybe again a larger proportion fee at present, again proposing the removal of all costs to ratepayers ignores that our businesses are ratepayers too, and again said today that it's already a higher rate percentage than a domestic rate as well. So they are already covering some of that cost as it is as their own ratepayer. So we obviously deem it inappropriate that some of this licensing fee can be covered in by general rates. We struggle to understand where the council again is coming from there. So we note that the council can cover costs incurred through other means. The private sector's been doing it obviously for the last few years, like trying to survive, looking internally at their own P&Ls, their own processes, and scrutinising that cost structure. And again, we've had nothing to show that this has been done before these numbers have been produced or suggested as why I would be doing it. So looking at our inefficiencies in your own services. Our members don't have the confidence that that has already been done to the state. And so it's very, very important that we get that across today. So a more beneficial approach could be looked at here around a little bit of, again, I guess training in the sense of understanding as we talk of the cost structure of district licensing committee, calling hearings. Well, again, it doesn't always have to go to hearing if it can be resolved on papers. Even if it's objected to, there's a chance where the committee can have it resolved on papers before we have to sit in this room and talk in front of that committee. So there are other structures that we can look at around how those cost preventures can be done. So Hospitality New Zealand does not support the obviously alcohol fees bylaw and recommends we continue to charge alcohol licence fees set by fees regulations, as that would be where we stand on this and opposed to the bylaw fee. So obviously thank you for your time, and I urge you to ask questions as I'm happy to take them. As well as the fact that I sit here in front of you as for Hospitality New Zealand, I also am 15 years in the industry. I own 2 of these businesses myself that are on-premise operations here in the Bay of Plenty in Tauranga City. And I can tell you firsthand financially where these businesses are at and what industry is feeling right now.
Thank you very much, Luke, and thank you very much for your submission. I think you bring up some very good points, and I can give you an assurance that we are looking at all processes and systems to drive efficiency and make sure that we're not doing things that we don't need to do. We have heard some frustration, I guess, around the process, and that's where my question probably comes from, obviously being in the industry as well as representing Hospitality New Zealand. But where do you see where we could improve and make the system a little bit easier? Obviously you've spoken about the papers rather than going to hearings, but is there other dealings that you've seen that you think we could improve, or where there's opportunities to?
Oh, look, definitely. I think, we all know we go to be every day to improve our systems, right? So there definitely is. I think it's very hard to sit here, sorry, on top of my head right now and sit here and pinpoint 100, because again, we don't fully know every part of the council system. I'm not an employee of the council, so I have no understanding in terms of the actual integration of that day to day, because we're not allowed to see that. If we could see that information, I'll happily sit there with you and go, hey mate, like here's my feeling of my understanding. We could change these. There's a lot of times where it seems to be a lot of people needing to be involved, where does it necessarily need that many people? The timeline, if it was put on the other foot, we have people waiting months and months for things to be signed off, whereas if again shoes on the other foot and you're a customer having to put it in, we have to have it in 20 working days, and if it's 1 minute past midnight and 19 working days, our licence application is thrown out. But we have people waiting for 6 months to a year or 3 months for that same thing. So there's some disparity there around that. From a hearing point of view, again, a lot of it could be around, again, from myself as an operator and from Hospitality New Zealand, we want compliance. We want people to be mitigating harm and doing all these things the Act requires, but we're not here today to talk about that. We're here today to talk about bylaw and fee structure. So that's another whole conversation off to the side. But again, there's an overarching Act. We heard it earlier. A lot of that stuff, I'm like, the Act is there for that reason. We're here to talk about bylaws today and a fee structure. So that's already in place. So yeah, there's a lot we could do around making it easier to submit. They're getting better with it. Timelines in terms of every month that a business doesn't know what's going on, it can cost money as well. There's those sort of things. And so happy as well to, like I said, as an organisation, to sit and have those conversations. Because my biggest thing is, again, you'd ask, in the know, in the business sector, own 2 businesses, plus I sit in this role, I'm probably got fingers in a lot of avenues to hear of this information. No one talked to me. No one came to our organisation, discussed this before it even came up. The first I heard about it, because I check your council website every Monday because it's part of my job, and that's how we find out this bylaw's up. It's like, well, how have we not had this conversation? I've just spent 2 months pre-stakeholder engagement with the Rotorua Lake Council over their LAP before it even went to draft and submission, because we are a stakeholder in the industry and we talk around from a big, wide avenue.
Okay, no, that's really helpful, and that's more, sorry, what I was asking around your experience as a customer rather than,
right, sorry.
But where are those pinch points, I guess, from a customer's perspective? But I think you've answered that well, Councillor Curate. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Luke. My question is around that cost allocation and where it lands.
Of course.
With other activities, I know like dog control, it's not fully funded by dog owners because there's public benefit. Same here, it's about lessening harm and creating a benefit to the public through licensing and other things. So where do you sit in terms of where the allocation should be? Either the public via their taxes rates or the exacerbator being the people that supply the product that creates the harm. Where does the balance sit in your view?
Yeah, look, that's a very good question. Again, it is there definitely is a balance. I suppose that's it. And today we're hearing of an imbalance of 100% going on the operator. So again, I would argue, well, there's an imbalance there. We're here today talking about balance. You look at lots of things around a CBD, a city, all that stuff. Again, as a ratepayer myself, there's certain amenities I don't use, but it doesn't mean I shouldn't pay for the library or, so there are lots of those things that come into the big picture of things. So again, it's that balance. And again, I think you look at it as operators, we're okay with, again, having we have a fee. That's okay. We know there's maybe an administration cost for having that license. The Act already states that there are different levels of that. So we have high risk, low risk, off, on. There's already all those balances, and across those balances, there's already different fee structures set. But across the national standard, there are a fair fee that we're not seeing a 244% jump in. That right now, how does a business justify that cost imposed? And where is that required? We've had nothing to show, again, that there's, hey, in the last 12 months, here's the council's data to say we have streamlined process. We need this balance made up. And as an operator, we can go, okay, that's fair and reasonable or not. But right now, it's not fair and reasonable. And we talk around amenity and good order and that and harm, again, as an act. There's parts already going into those areas to deal with the unfortunate side of what can happen from it. But again, you're talking now around adding cost structure to the controlled side of the industry. Majority, a lot of these licenses are controlled environments from an on-premise point of view. Sitting as a council, we should be focusing our energy into those people to drive the flourishing other outer points of it. One business doesn't just employ 10 people, in a hospitality space. It's a huge portion of GDP for the country. There's people that are employed and suppliers and other, parts that go deeper into it. Plus, then we talk of tourism. I could sit here and, talk about it for a very long time. So there's a huge part to that there. So there's already other avenues there. But my point to you is you've talked about balance in your question. Well, the thing that's put in front of me is an imbalance of 100% imposed on the applicant. So
beneficiary, the public versus the exacerbator being the other side of the equation. So, it's an interesting discussion, and look, I'd like to compare other cities and the other approach from other councils around where that point is, a fair balance. Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Morris.
Very briefly, and picking up on Councillor Curate's point, Luke, would you be able to ask your members and find out an exemplar system from one of the 65 odd different territorial authorities around the country, a council or two that are doing it well from the association's perspective? That'd be really
useful. I can definitely go to Sam, our head of advocacy, and see if we have some data there for you, or because he deals across it nationally a little bit more than I get the scope to. Yeah. You're lucky enough, Councillor, I'm in Auckland with them tomorrow, so I'll pull him aside, mate, and have a chat to him for you.
Really interested, as the Mayor said, in those.
Of course.
Where we can do things more
efficiently. Yeah, please.
Thanks, Luke. I won't keep you long. You've obviously generated the questions. I suppose just one thing, just quickly on your 244%, and I don't want to challenge on it too hard, but we've been locked in a system with the current bylaw that we haven't been able to change. And so over time, I think that's been since 2013, and so there's 11, 12 plus years of having a set fee as opposed to a cost recovery type model. So I suppose the 244%, it does come as a shock. And, there was a question I think asked about maybe what you feel is a 100% fair or not. That's a different one, but I just wanted to sort of put there that the increase that's there now, and I'm not necessarily justifying anything, I'm just saying that that's a result of a long time of not recovering costs. And so, the argument, if your $15 beer that you used went to 36, if your cost of your beer jumped 244% in your business, what would you do? So I suppose there's an element of we're trying to do, and these are designed to be fair ways to help our council operate well. And if we don't recover or have that cost somewhere, it will, be somewhere else. It will still be a cost to us. So we're not trying to make profit on it, I suppose. But I know that's a big jump. But I just want to outline there's a reason why the disparities there.
Yeah, look, and that's I think, and that's why in my submission I recognise that, we understand, and so again, obviously, look, perfect world, no, I don't want to see a cost increase. Industry doesn't but put in there, maybe it might be more justified to see inflation. So we talked about 33% across the time. So all of a sudden between 33 and 244, and please don't challenge my numbers because I got them off the paper and I'm sure they're right, but I appreciate that. But that would be maybe an easier pill to swallow and understandable, along with even more data and showing that the council has looked internally, like every private sector is still doing now and still have been doing for 18 months. I comb my P&Ls every 3 months and literally am sucking out every cost I can if that business does not need it. If you can show that is already happening, there's more confidence that the numbers are true and fair and balanced. But right now, going from where we are, and I'm not saying it was the hand you were dealt, but unfortunately, 244% increase is where is this justified?
Have you seen any of our meetings? Where there's been, I can honestly say to you around the table, there's a, we're working hard to do that as well.
And I'm not here to say you're not, like that said, I get it. But I guess from our point, my members work just as hard as you do. And respectfully, at times harder because of how hard it is right now. They're doing 70-hour weeks. They do, industry is not in a good place. And we're not here to talk about that today. We're here to talk about the bylaws. But I'm happy to leave my cards, and anyone that wants a chat, please. I'm a local lad, lived here my whole life, own 2 businesses in the sector, and I sit across an association of national bodies. So,
thank you very much. Very useful information, and just to reiterate, we have not yet, but we are going along that process throughout the whole council, looking at streamlining and making sure everything is as efficient as possible. So we'll give you that commitment that will be done.
Awesome, thank you for your time.
Thanks. Now I invite Jay Thomas from Saltwater up. Jay's... Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, our last 2 have not showed up. So that is actually the end of our hearings. Has anyone got any questions for Sarah or the staff before we... Okay, Sarah, could you just come over just so we can hear you? And
I have a question, man.
Yeah, certainly.
Sarah, you heard my last question to Luke there. Are we able to do or have some sort of a comparison between other... I know we can see what others charge, but in terms of how they operate relative to us, you'll have some experience in your role of different... mind you, that was regional council, it's a different kind of enforcement. But I'm just wondering how we can provide some assurance or to ourselves and to the community around how efficiently we're operating in that enforcement space.
Through the chair, that's certainly an important piece of information that we intend to bring you when it comes time to setting the fees. And it's a lot of the work is driven by the legislation, so you have to do X, Y and Z. And Nigel and his team, as well as our policy team, have been looking really hard at how other councils are processing their licences, how many staff they've got, how long does it take? All of those, just so we can benchmark ourselves and make sure we're doing everything that we can as efficiently as possible. And also, one of the things that Nigel is looking at introducing is making sure we can timesheet, so we can show you how long every part of the system takes. And that'll be really important for you in the setting of the fees.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Kura.
And also some feedback around my questions about the share that either the public pay or like the term exacerbator I used before, and where we look at other activities such as animal control, where the benefit largely lays to the, is provided to the community in terms of controlling dogs that might roam. But the large amount of the payment comes from good dog owners who are never really causing a problem, and that's where we weigh up, I suppose, the proportion that is covered through rates, to provide that public benefit of controlling roaming dogs, versus the dog owners. So in this, relative to this activity, will the report, when it comes back to us in terms of setting the balance, will that take that into account rather than focus on full recovery? Will that sort of issue be covered in that report on sort of justifying whether it's full user pays, if I can use that term, or some that would be really very appropriately charged via the rates?
That will be a really important decision that you will make. We will provide you with what other councils are doing, because there's a recognition across the country that those 2013 fees are really out of date. So there are a number of councils now introducing a bylaw to give them the flexibility. We will show you what their proportion is of rates versus fees. And at the end of the day, that'll come down to how the council feels about, is it a 90-10, is it a 50-50, and we can show you what the costs then would be incurred.
Thank you,
Councillor Crowler.
I just want, have you done enough comparison at the moment? I'm trying to understand what are the drivers of the cost differences. So, I mean, part of it is that you've got this, backlog of increased costs since 2013, presumably. Then you've got another thing is the proportionality, and then you've got where other councils have ended up. And having just a very quick scan of some city councils, they've ended up in quite different numbers, for those different categories of very low to very high. And you look at that range, and it's pretty broad. So you could presumably sort of say we slot in somewhere in the spectrum, and that's one issue. And that may, to some extent, reflect the efficiencies. It may, to some extent, reflect other factors. But I'm just looking at, it's more sort of how big that range is. When you have certain things like, say, building a road or whatever, supposedly there's a ban, but it's within a certain relatively narrow portion, supposedly, but with all things being equal. But here you've got, is it the fact that all things are not equal? Is it that, say, Tauranga's licensing situation is very different to Napier or Hamilton or whatever? Is it that they have taken a different approach and sort of have various costs put in? Do we know any of that, or is that still to be worked through as you go through the process here?
I'm looking at Jane, our policy analyst here, because she has been doing a lot of the analysis with other councils, and also asking some questions that sit below what the actual fees are. So what was in the decisions that they made? Because often, as you know, it's not necessarily
this costs X, therefore the charge will be Y. There will be some decisions that they make around their funding and financing policy and where they want those costs to sit. So we will provide that information when it comes to setting the fees. But what we will also provide you is this is what it costs to do business here in Tauranga. Here's how long things take. Here are how many licences we're processing. Here is our monitoring and compliance regime. Here are how many operations we might do for underage sales. So you will have a good understanding of the time it takes for us to do the business that we need to do.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for answering those questions. Now we have some recommendations up on screen. So happy to move. Thank you, Councillor Kurak. Got a seconder, Councillor Crowther. Thank you very much. Is there any further discussion on this item?
Just to say thank you to the submitters who are still here to.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you as well to the submitters. I think we've heard a range of different views, which is fantastic. We really enjoy getting feedback direct from our community. Obviously, significant amount of submissions were put in writing, and thank you to those that have come and presented today. I think it's given me certainly some things to think about, and I think it's important that as a council we continue to drive that value for money for our people and obviously our customers, making sure that we are as lean and mean and efficient as an organisation, and we get those processes as right as we can. So that's definitely a direction, I guess, to staff to keep looking for those opportunities to find those efficiencies. That's all I have to say. So if no one else has anything to say, I'll put the resolution to the floor and ask all those in favour. Aye. Those against? That is carried. Oh, sorry. Councillor Taylor will abstain.
Just note that he took no part in the vote or discussion.
Okay. Perfect. And that is carried. Thank you very much. Councillor Schuler, we got a closing karakia. Thank you.
We've got a different one. Can't recycle.
Just a minute. Happy to do that.
It is.
Give me up. Ka whakaaeria te tapu kia wā te ai te ara, kia tūruki whakataha ai, kia tūruki whakataha ai, haumi e hui e.
Thank you very much, everyone. I declare the meeting closed at 5:16. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, that one.